Imagine a man with nothing left, broke, betrayed, stranded on a dusty spaceport, chasing a dream in a cantina that smells of regret. Elie Voss buys a battered ship for his last 600 credits, hoping for a new start. But what he finds inside isn't just alien tech, it's Lyra, a stunning warrior queen with silver hair and violet eyes that burn through his soul. Their forbidden bond sparks a fire that could save the galaxy or ignite it. Buckle up for starbound hearts, where love, danger, and cosmic secrets collide. The cantina smelled like regret and engine grease, a heady mix that clung to the air like a bad decision. Elie Voss sat at the bar, nursing a glass of something that claimed to be whiskey, but tasted like it had been distilled from a starship's exhaust. His fingers, stained black from years of wrench turning, traced the rim of the glass as he stared into its amber depths. Around him, the dive on Asterion 7 buzzed with life, smugglers haggling over black market tech, miners blowing their credits on drinks that glowed unnatural colors, and a few aliens with too many limbs to count, their eyes glinting with secrets. Elie didn't belong here, not really. But then again, he didn't belong anywhere anymore. 6 months ago, he'd been the proud owner of Voss's Stellar Repairs, a little shop on the edge of the Orion Spur that kept freighters flying and pilots happy. Then came the betrayal. His business partner, Clara, had sold him out to a corporate syndicate, leaving him with nothing but a stack of debts and a one-way ticket to this dust-choked rock. She'd taken everything, his tools, his reputation, even the old holo frame of his parents. All he had left was 600 credits, a battered toolkit, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Another, the bartender, a four-eyed Zainari with scales that shimmered like oil slicks, slid a fresh glass toward him. Her voice was a low hum like a ship's engine warming up. Elie pushed his empty glass forward. Might as well, not like I've got a ship to fly home in. The Zainari's eyes flicked over him, sizing him up. Heard about the shadow market auction tonight? They're selling ships dirt cheap, no questions asked. Elie snorted. Cheap for you might be a fortune for me. Not this time. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Word is they've got a relic from Nethuria, old, beat-up but functional, starting bids 500 credits. His heart skipped. Nethuria. The name alone conjured whispers of a long-lost alien empire, their ships legendary for tech so advanced it bordered on magic. A ship like that, even a wreck, could be his ticket out of this hole. He could fix it, flip it, or maybe, just maybe, start over somewhere new. But 500 credits was nearly everything he had. If it went wrong, he'd be stranded, broke, and begging for scraps. Sounds like a trap, he muttered, but his mind was already racing. He'd always been good with machines, coaxing life out of engines others called dead. One gamble could change everything. Traps are only traps if you don't know how to spring them, the bartender said with a wink, then turned to serve a hulking alien with tentacles for arms. Elie drained his glass, the burn of the liquor sharpening his resolve. 2 hours later, he stood in a cavernous hangar on the edge of Asterion 7, surrounded by a motley crowd of bidders, shady traders, cyber-augmented pirates, and a few desperate souls like himself. The shadow market was a place of whispered deals and darker secrets, its holographic displays flickering with images of ships that had seen better days. The air smelled of ozone and desperation. The auctioneer, a wiry humanoid with a voice like a buzzsaw, gestured to the next lot. Lot number 17, the Stellar Wisp, a Nethurian corvette pre-war vintage. Life support's a bit temperamental and the hyperdrives, let's call it artistic, but she's a beauty, folks, and she's yours for a steal. Bidding starts at 500 credits. Elie's eyes locked onto the ship. The Stellar Wisp was a sleek, silver relic, its hull dented and scarred but still gleaming with an otherworldly elegance. Its curves were unlike anything human-built, all flowing lines and glowing runes that pulsed faintly under the hangar's dim lights. It looked like it belonged in a museum, not a scrap heap. His fingers itched to get under its hull, to unravel its secrets. The bidding started fast. 500, called a grizzled smuggler. 6, shouted a cyborg with a glowing eye. Elie's stomach churned as the price climbed. 700, 800, 900. He couldn't compete with that, but then something strange happened. The crowd hesitated. Whispers rippled through the hangar, words like cursed and haunted. The auctioneer's grin faltered. Come on, folks, he barked. This is a Nethurian masterpiece. Do I hear 950? Silence. Elie's heart pounded. This was his chance. 500, he shouted, his voice cracking. Heads turned, and the auctioneer's eyes narrowed. 500? The auctioneer repeated, incredulous. Going once, going twice, sold to the human in the back. A murmur of disbelief swept through the crowd as Elie stepped forward, his palms sweaty. He handed over his credits, feeling like he'd just bet his soul on a roll of the dice. The dock worker, a scaly Andromedon, tossed him a data chip with the ship's access codes. "Good luck, human," he said, his tone dripping with pity. "That ship's got a reputation. Last owner, well, he ain't flying anymore." "What kind of reputation?" Illy asked, but the worker was already walking away. An hour later, Illy stood in the Stellar Wisp's cockpit, his toolkit at his feet. The ship was a mess, wires dangling like entrails, control panels flickering with alien text he couldn't read. But it was his. For the first time in months, he felt a spark of hope. He ran his hands over the console, surface cool and smooth, almost alive. "All right, girl," he murmured. "Let's see what you've got." He plugged his diagnostic tablet into the main port, expecting a flood of error codes. Instead, the ship hummed to life. Lights flared, and a low, melodic voice filled the cockpit, speaking in a language that sounded like wind chimes and starlight. Illy froze as a holoscreen flickered on, displaying a cascade of glyphs. Then, with a hiss, a hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a cryogenic pod. Inside was a woman, no, not a woman, not entirely. She was tall, her skin a luminous white that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Her hair, long and silver, flowed like liquid moonlight, framing a face that was both sharp and impossibly beautiful, with high cheekbones and lips that curved like a promise. Her ears, small and pointed like an elf's, twitched slightly. She wore a form-fitting outfit of fur-like material, soft and primal, that hugged her curves in a way that made Illy's mouth go dry. Her eyes fluttered open, violet and luminous, locking onto his with an intensity that felt like a physical touch. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice low and melodic, carrying an accent that was both alien and achingly familiar. Illy's heart hammered. "I'm Illy Voss. I bought this ship." Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped out of the pod with a grace that made the air feel heavier. "Bought," she repeated, her tone sharp enough to cut steel. "This is the Stellar Wisp, flagship of the Orali's Dominion. I am Lyra, first of the Starweave clan, and you, human, have just made a very dangerous mistake." Illy's mind raced. A ship with a reputation, a cryogenic pod, an alien who looked like she could command empires or break hearts with equal ease. He'd spent 500 credits expecting a fixer-upper, not a galactic incident. "Look," he said, raising his hands. "I didn't know you were part of the deal. Maybe we can." Before he could finish, the ship's alarms blared and the holoscreen flashed red. Lyra's head snapped toward it, her expression shifting from anger to alarm. "Intruders," she said, her voice low and urgent. "They found us." "Who's they?" Illy asked, but the answer came in the form of a distant explosion that rocked the hangar. The Stellar Wisp shuddered, and Lyra's eyes met his again, this time with a spark of something new, resolve maybe, or desperation. "Help me save my ship," she said, "and I might let you live." Illy swallowed hard, his hand already reaching for his toolkit. He'd wanted a new start, but this was something else entirely, a human mechanic, an alien queen, and a ship that might just be their salvation or their doom. The Stellar Wisp shuddered again, a low groan echoing through its hull as another explosion rocked the hangar outside. Illy Voss's hands froze on his toolkit, his pulse hammering in his ears. The cockpit's dim lights flickered, casting long shadows across Lyra's luminous face, her violet eyes blazing with a mix of fury and focus. She stood at the main console, her fingers dancing over the alien glyphs with a speed that made Illy dizzy. The air between them crackled, not just with the static of the ship's failing systems, but with something else, something unspoken that made his skin prickle. "Intruders," Lyra said again, her voice like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Pirates, likely. The shadow market attracts scavengers like carrion draws flies." She glanced at him, her gaze sharp enough to pin him to the wall. "Can you make this ship move, human, or did I wake to find myself stranded with a useless mechanic?" Illy's jaw tightened. Useless. He'd rebuilt engines from scrap, kept freighters flying through asteroid storms. But this wasn't some junker freighter, this was a Nithurian corvette, its tech as alien to him as Lyra herself. Still, her challenge lit a fire in his chest. "Give me 5 minutes," he said, dropping to his knees and yanking open a panel beneath the console. "And maybe don't call me useless until I've had a chance to prove otherwise." Lyra's lips twitched, a flicker of amusement breaking through her regal composure. 5 minutes, Illy Voss. Impress me." He didn't have time to dwell on the way her voice curled around his name, or the way her fur-clad silhouette seemed to fill the cockpit with a presence that was both commanding and distractingly magnetic. Another blast shook the ship, and the holoscreen flared with warnings in a language he couldn't read. Illy's fingers moved on instinct, tracing wires, rerouting power, bypassing fried circuits. The Stellar Wisp hummed in response, a faint pulse of life that felt like a heartbeat under his hands. "Who are these pirates?" he asked, his voice muffled as he wedged himself deeper into the wiring. And why do they want your ship? Lyra's fingers paused on the console, her expression darkening. The Stellar Wisp is no mere ship. It's a relic of the Orali's dominion, built to carry the Starweave clan's secrets. Secrets worth killing for. She leaned closer, her silver hair brushing his shoulder as she checked his work. Her scent, ozone and something floral, like a storm over a meadow, hit him like a shot of that bad cantina whiskey. As for why they're here, let's just say I borrowed this ship under less than legal circumstances. Ellie's head snapped up, nearly banging into the console. Borrowed? You mean stole? He caught her gaze, those violet eyes glinting with defiance. Great, so I'm stuck on a stolen ship with a fugitive alien queen and pirates knocking at the door. Anything else I should know? Her lips curved into a smirk that was equal parts dangerous and alluring. Only that you're more interesting than I expected, human. She straightened, her fur-like outfit shifting to reveal a glimpse of her luminous skin, and Ellie's throat went dry. Now focus. We need to lift off before they breach the hangar. He muttered a curse under his breath, forcing his attention back to the wiring. The ship's systems were a maze of contradictions, human logic clashing with Nithurian tech that seemed to pulse with intent. He spliced a power relay, and the cockpit lights stabilized, bathing Lyra in a soft glow that made her look like a goddess carved from starlight. Not helpful, he thought, shaking his head. Focus, Voss. The ship's melodic voice chimed again, its tone urgent. Warning. External hull breach detected. Hostile entities approaching primary airlock. A holo display flickered to life, showing a dozen figures in mismatched armor cutting through the hangar doors with plasma torches. Their leader, a hulking figure with cybernetic implants glowing red, carried a rifle that looked like it could punch a hole through a moon. Pirates from the Dravex Syndicate, Lyra said, her voice low and tense. They've been hunting me since I left Orali's. They want the Wisp's core, a quantum lattice that powers its systems. It's unique. Unique how? Illy asked, rerouting the last circuit. The engines whined, a promising sound. Unique enough to reshape empires, she said, her eyes locking onto his, or destroy them. Before he could press for details, the ship lurched, and the holo screen showed the pirates breaching the airlock. Lyra moved like liquid lightning, pulling a sleek, rune-covered blade from a hidden sheath in her outfit. The weapon hummed with energy, its edge glowing faintly. Can you fly this ship? She asked, her tone leaving no room for doubt. Fly, maybe fight, not my specialty. Illy slid out from under the console, wiping sweat from his brow. But I'm guessing you've got that covered. Her smile was a predator's, sharp and thrilling. Stay here, keep the engines hot. I'll handle the vermin. She turned to leave, but Illy grabbed her arm, his fingers brushing her warm, impossibly smooth skin. The contact sent a jolt through him like touching a live wire. Wait, he said, his voice rougher than he intended. You're going out there alone, against a dozen armed pirates? Lyra's eyes softened just for a moment, and she tilted her head, her silver hair catching the light. Concerned for me, Illy Voss, or for your investment? Her voice was teasing, but there was a warmth in it that made his chest tighten. Both, he admitted, releasing her arm. Just don't get yourself killed. I'm not done proving I'm not useless. She laughed, a sound like silver chimes in a breeze, and it hit him harder than the explosions outside. Stay alive, human, we have unfinished business. With that, she slipped out of the cockpit, her blade humming as she vanished into the ship's corridors. Illy turned back to the console, his hands flying over the controls. The Stellar Wisp responded sluggishly, its systems still waking from years of dormancy. He coaxed the engines, whispering to them like old friends. Come on, girl, don't let me down. The hum grew steadier, and the ship lifted slightly, its thrusters kicking up dust in the hangar. Through the holo screen, he watched Lyra move. She was a blur of grace and violence, her blade slicing through the pirate's armor like it was paper. One went down with a scream, another stumbled back, clutching a severed cybernetic arm. Her movements were a dance, lethal, precise, and impossibly beautiful. Illy's breath caught, not just from the danger but from her. She was a storm, a force of nature, and he couldn't look away. But the pirates weren't amateurs. Their leader barked orders, and two of them flanked Lyra, firing plasma bolts that lit up the corridor. She dodged with inhuman speed, but a stray shot grazed her shoulder, singeing her fur-like outfit. Illy's heart lurched. Damn it, he muttered, slamming a fist on the console. He wasn't a fighter, but he wasn't useless either. He scanned the controls, spotting a panel marked with a glowing rune that pulsed like a heartbeat. Instinct told him it was a weapons system. He hesitated, Nithurian tech was unpredictable, but Lyra was out there, bleeding for his ship. He hit the rune, and the ship responded with a low growl, A turret deployed from the hull, its barrels spinning up with a whine that vibrated through the cockpit. "Hope you know what you're doing, Voss," he muttered, targeting the pirate's leader. The turret fired, a pulse of blue energy that vaporized a section of the hangar wall and sent the pirates scrambling. Lyra glanced back at the ship, her eyes meeting the cockpit's camera for a split second. Was that a nod of approval? A smirk? Whatever it was, it made his pulse race. The engines roared to life, and the stellar wisp broke free of the hangar, tearing through the collapsing roof as alarms blared. Illy gripped the controls, steering the ship into the black void of space. Lyra burst back into the cockpit, her chest heaving, her shoulder marked with a faint burn. Blood violet, shimmering, trickled down her arm, but she stood tall, her blade still humming in her hand. "Not bad, human," she said, her voice breathless but warm. She stepped closer, too close, and the air between them felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. Her scent filled the cockpit, and Illy's hands tightened on the controls to keep them from shaking. "You might be worth keeping around." He swallowed, trying to ignore the heat creeping up his neck. "You're welcome," he said, his voice rough. "But we're not out of this yet. Those pirates have ships, and they're probably pissed." Lyra's eyes gleamed, and she leaned over the console, her silver hair brushing his cheek as she checked the sensors. The contact was fleeting, but it sent a shiver down his spine. "They're launching interceptors," she said, her tone calm but laced with urgency. "3 ships closing fast. Can you outrun them?" Illy glanced at the hyperdrive panel, its lights still red. "Not with this hyperdrive offline. We'll have to fight or hide." He met her gaze, and for a moment the cockpit felt too small, the air too thick. Her lips were inches from his, her eyes searching his face like she was seeing him for the first time. "Then we fight," she said, her voice low and intimate, like a secret shared in the dark. "Together." Illy nodded, his heart pounding not just from the danger, but from the way she said together. He didn't know what he'd gotten himself into, but as the stellar wisp screamed through the void, with Lyra at his side and pirate ships closing in, he knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary ship, and she was no ordinary woman. And whatever came next, he was all in. The stellar wisp tore through the void, its engines screaming as Illy Voss wrestled with the controls, the cockpit vibrating with the strain of a ship pushed to its limits. Outside, the stars blurred into streaks of light, but the 3 Dravex Syndicate interceptors clung to their tail, their plasma cannons spitting deadly arcs that grazed the Wisp's hull. Sparks flew from a nearby panel, and Illy cursed under his breath, his hands slick with sweat. Beside him, Lyra stood like a statue carved from moonlight, her violet eyes locked on the holoscreen as she calculated their odds. The air between them was thick with tension, not just from the chase, but from the unspoken pull that seemed to tighten every time their gazes met. 3 ships, no hyperdrive, and a half-functional turret, Illy muttered, dodging another plasma bolt that lit up the cockpit in a flash of green. "Any bright ideas, Your Highness?" Lyra's lips twitched, but her voice was steel. "Keep us alive for another minute, Illy Voss, and I'll show you what this ship can do." She leaned over the console, her fur-clad shoulder brushing his, sending a jolt through him that had nothing to do with the ship's lurching. Her fingers flew across the alien glyphs, coaxing a low hum from the Wisp's core. "The quantum lattice is waking. If we can channel its power, we might outmaneuver them." "Might?" Illy shot her a look, his heart pounding. "That's not exactly inspiring confidence." Her eyes flicked to his, a spark of mischief in their violet depths. "Trust me, man, I've survived worse odds." Her tone was teasing, but there was a weight to it, a promise that made his pulse race for reasons beyond the imminent threat of death. Before he could respond, the ship's melodic voice cut through the cockpit, its tone urgent yet eerily calm. "Warning, enemy vessels locking weapons. Impact in 15 seconds." The holo screen showed the interceptors fanning out, their formation tightening like a noose. Illy's stomach dropped. They were outgunned, outmanned, and running out of time. "Lyra, whatever you're planning, now's the time," he shouted, yanking the controls to weave through a hail of plasma fire. The Wisp groaned, its hull protesting as a glancing shot scorched its flank. He glanced at the diagnostics. Life support was holding barely, but the shields were down to 20%. One more hit could end them. Lyra's hands moved faster, her face a mask of concentration. "The lattice needs a catalyst," she said, her voice low and intense. "Something to bridge its energy to the ship's systems." She turned to him, her eyes blazing. "You, Illy, your bioenergy can stabilize it." "Me?" Illy's voice cracked. "I'm a mechanic, not a battery." Her smile was fierce, almost feral. "Nithurian tech bonds with living energy, your will, your spirit. It's why I sensed you the moment you touched this ship." She stepped closer, her hand grazing his arm, her touch igniting a warmth that spread through his chest. "Link with me now." Illy's mind reeled. Link, what did that even mean? but the urgency in her voice, the way her eyes held his like he was the only thing anchoring her to this moment, left no room for doubt. He nodded, swallowing hard. "Tell me what to do." Her hand slid to his, guiding it to a glowing rune on the console. The contact was electric, her skin warm and impossibly smooth, and for a split second, the chaos of the chase faded. "Focus," she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. "Feel the ship, feel me." He closed his eyes, forcing himself to ignore the alarms blaring around them. The rune pulsed under his palm, its rhythm syncing with his heartbeat. A strange sensation washed over him like stepping into a warm ocean, waves of energy flowing through his veins. He felt the wisp, its circuits humming like a living thing, and then Lyra. Her presence was a storm in his mind, fierce and radiant, a mix of determination and something softer, something that made his breath hitch. The ship responded. The hum grew into a roar and the holoscreen flared with new data. "Quantum lattice engaged," the ship's voice announced. "Maneuvering systems at 150% capacity." Illy's eyes snapped open. What the hell was that? Lyra's smile was triumphant, but her cheeks were flushed, her breath uneven. "You, Illy Voss, you're more than you know." She leaned closer, her lips brushing his ear as she whispered, "Now fly." He didn't need to be told twice. His hands danced across the controls, the wisp responding like an extension of his body. He banked hard, diving toward a nearby asteroid field, its jagged rocks glinting like teeth in the starlight. The interceptors followed, their cannons blazing, but the wisp was faster now, weaving through the asteroids with a grace that defied its battered state. Illy laughed, a wild, reckless sound. "This ship's a damn miracle." "It's us," Lyra corrected, her voice low and intimate, her hand still resting on his arm. The cockpit felt too small, the air too warm, and Illy was acutely aware of every inch between them or the lack thereof. But the pirates weren't done. The lead interceptor, a sleek, predatory ship with crimson markings, surged forward, its cannons locking onto the wisp. A new alarm blared. "Proximity alert, enemy vessel deploying gravitic mines." The holoscreen showed a swarm of glowing orbs spreading out, their fields distorting space around them. One wrong move and the wisp would be torn apart. "Gravitic mines?" Illy's voice rose. "You didn't mention those." Lyra's expression hardened. "They're Dravex. They don't play fair." She moved to the weapon's console, her blade now sheathed, her fingers activating the turret Illy had used earlier. "Keep us steady. I'll clear a path." The wisp danced through the asteroid field, Illy's hands a blur as he dodged rocks and mines. Lyra fired precise bursts, detonating the mines in flashes of white light. Each explosion rocked the ship, but Illy held it together, his focus razor-sharp. He could still feel Lyra in his mind, a steady presence that kept him grounded even as the world burned around them. Then, the unthinkable happened. The lead interceptor broke through the minefield, its cannons charging for a final shot. The holoscreen flashed red, critical hit imminent. Illy's heart stopped. This was it. They'd fought, they'd flown, but they were out of options. Lyra's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder. "Illy, the lattice, it can do more than boost speed." Her voice was urgent, her eyes wild. "There's a weapon, a pulse array, but it requires both of us. A full bond." "A what?" Lee's voice was hoarse, his eyes flicking between her and the holoscreen. The interceptor's cannons glowed brighter, seconds from firing. "A bond," she said, stepping so close her body pressed against his side, her warmth seeping through his clothes. "Our energies fully linked, it's intimate, but it's our only chance." Illy's breath caught. Intimate? His mind flashed to her luminous skin, her violet eyes, the way her presence made his heart race. But there was no time to overthink. "Do it," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. She nodded, her hand sliding to the back of his neck, her touch sending a shiver down his spine. "Open your mind," she whispered, and then she pressed her forehead to his, her eyes locking onto his. The world fell away. The alarms, the explosions, the imminent death, all of it faded as their minds merged. Illy felt her strength, her fear, her fire, like a supernova in his soul. He saw flashes of her past. A golden throne, a burning sky, a betrayal that drove her to steal the wisp. And he felt something deeper, a longing that mirrored his own. The wisp roared, its hull glowing as the pulse array activated. A wave of energy erupted from the ship, a shimmering blue shockwave that engulfed the interceptor. The enemy ship's systems fried in an instant, its hull sparking and drifting lifelessly among the asteroids. The other two interceptors hesitated, then turned tail, fleeing into the void. Illy and Lyra broke apart, gasping, their foreheads still inches apart. The cockpit was silent except for the hum of the wisp's engines. Illy's heart pounded, not just from the fight but from the intensity of their connection. He could still feel her, a faint echo in his mind, and the way her eyes searched his made him wonder if she felt him too. What was that? he asked, his voice rough, his hands trembling on the controls. Lyra's lips parted, her breath uneven. The pulse array, it channels the bond between pilot and ship or between us. She stepped back, but her gaze lingered, heavy with something unspoken. You're not what I expected, Ellie Voss. He managed a shaky grin. Yeah, well, you're not exactly what I signed up for either. He glanced at the holo screen, now clear of threats. But we're alive, that's something. For now, she said, her tone shifting to something darker. She turned to the sensors, her fingers brushing his arm as she moved. The Dravex won't give up, and there's something else. The lattice, its waking systems I didn't know existed. Illy frowned, following her gaze to a new rune pulsing on the console, its glow unlike anything he'd seen. What kind of systems? Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time he saw uncertainty in them. The kind that could make us the most wanted beings in the galaxy, or the most powerful. Before he could ask more, the ship's voice spoke, its tone colder than before. Alert, unknown signal detected. Origin, Orali's Dominion. Message encoded for Starweave clan. Lyra froze, her face paling, and Ellie's gut twisted. Whatever was coming, it was bigger than pirates, and it was calling her name. The stellar wisp drifted silently through the void, its engines quieted to a low hum as Ellie Voss leaned back in the pilot's chair, his hands still tingling from the pulse array's energy. The cockpit was bathed in the soft glow of the console, the new rune pulsing ominously like a heartbeat. Lyra stood at the sensors, her silver hair catching the light, her face etched with a tension that made Ellie's gut twist. The unknown signal from the Orali's Dominion hung between them like a storm cloud, its encoded message repeating in the ship's melodic voice. For Starweave clan, Priority Alpha, respond. Lyra hadn't moved since the alert sounded, her violet eyes fixed on the holoscreen as if it might bite. Ellie cleared his throat, trying to break the silence. So, Orali's Dominion, that's your people, right? Care to explain why they're sending you cryptic messages that sound like they are about to declare war? Lyra's gaze flicked to him, sharp and guarded, but there was a flicker of something softer, maybe guilt, maybe fear. It's complicated, she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. She stepped closer, her fur-like outfit brushing against the console, and Lee caught that scent again, ozone and meadow flowers, making his head swim. The Dominion doesn't send priority alpha signals lightly. It means they know I'm alive, and they want something. Something like their stolen ship, Illy asked, raising an eyebrow, or their runaway queen? Her lips twitched, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Both, and more. She turned back to the console, her fingers hesitating over the rune. If I respond, they'll track us. If I don't, they'll assume I'm dead or worse, a traitor. Illy leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. And are you, a traitor, I mean? Her head snapped up, her eyes blazing. You think I'd betray my clan? Her voice was a blade, but there was a tremor in it, a crack in her regal armor. She stepped closer, so close he could see the faint shimmer of her skin, like moonlight on water. I stole the wisp to protect it, Ellie Voss, to keep its secrets from those who'd use them to burn worlds. He held her gaze, his heart pounding. Okay, I believe you, but you've got to give me more than that. I'm flying blind here, literally, and I just mind-melded with you to blow up a pirate ship. I think I've earned a little context. Lyra's expression softened, and she sighed, running a hand through her silver hair. The motion made her outfit shift, revealing a sliver of her collarbone, and Ellie's mouth went dry. Focus, he told himself, but it was like trying to ignore a supernova. You're right, she said, her voice quieter now, but it's not a story I tell lightly. The wisp carries a fragment of the Starweave matrix, a technology my clan swore to protect. It can rewrite reality itself, reshape matter, energy, even time in small doses. The Dominion's council wanted to weaponize it. I couldn't let that happen. Illy blinked, his mind struggling to process. So you stole a reality-bending spaceship and went on the run. And now they're pissed. Great. Anything else I should know before we get blasted out of the sky? Her lips quirked, a genuine smile this time. You're handling this better than most humans would. She stepped closer, her hand brushing his shoulder, and the contact sent a shiver through him. But yes, there's more. The Matrix, it's bonded to me. And now, because of our link, it's bonded to you too. Illy's jaw dropped. Bonded like what, we're married to the ship now? He laughed, but it came out more nervous than he intended. I mean, I'm flattered, but I usually like a heads up before I get hitched to alien tech. Lyra's laugh was soft, like wind chimes, but her eyes were serious. Not married exactly, but connected. The Matrix amplifies our emotions, our wills. It's why you felt me during the pulse array, why I feel you now. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper, and she leaned closer, her breath warm against his cheek. It's intimate. Illy's face burned, and he shifted in his chair, suddenly aware of how small the cockpit was. Intimate, huh? You sure know how to make a guy feel special. He tried for a grin, but his voice was rough, and the way her eyes lingered on him wasn't helping. So, what, we're stuck sharing headspace with a ship that can rewrite reality? That's not awkward at all. Before Lyra could respond, the ship's voice cut in, its tone colder than ever. Alert! Incoming transmission override. Orali's Dominion vessel detected 500,000 kilometers and closing. The holoscreen flickered, revealing a massive warship, its hull a gleaming lattice of crystal and metal, adorned with runes that pulsed like stars. Its weapons were already charging, a soft hum vibrating through the Wisp's hull. Lyra's face paled, her hand tightening on Ellie's shoulder. That's the Dawnblade. My sister's ship. Her voice was barely a whisper, laced with a pain Ellie didn't understand but felt like a knife in his chest. Your sister? He asked, his eyes flicking between her and the holoscreen. As in, happy family reunion sister, or wants to kill you sister. Lyra's laugh was bitter. Zara, second of the Starweave clan. She doesn't approve of my choices. She turned to the console, her fingers trembling as she silenced the transmission. She's here to bring me back or destroy me. Ellie's mind raced. A sister, a warship, a reality-bending matrix, and pirates still licking their wounds somewhere out there. This was getting out of hand. Okay, we can't outrun that thing, and I'm guessing fighting isn't an option. Any ideas? Lyra's eyes met his, and for a moment he saw the weight of her past, centuries of duty, betrayal, and loss. There's one option, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The Matrix can cloak us, bend light and sensors to make us invisible, but it requires a deeper bond, more than the pulse array. Ellie swallowed, his throat dry. Deeper how? The memory of her forehead against his, her presence flooding his mind, was still vivid. Intimate didn't begin to cover it. She stepped closer, her hand sliding to his chest, her touch burning through his shirt. We open ourselves completely, she said, her voice low and urgent. No barriers, no secrets. The Matrix will amplify everything, our strengths, our fears, our desires. Her eyes searched his, and Ellie felt his heart skip, caught in the pull of her gaze. Desires? He echoed, his voice hoarse. You're saying we have to, what, bare our souls to hide from your sister? That's a hell of a plan. Her lips curved, a mix of amusement and challenge. Scared, Ellie Voss? Terrified, he admitted, but he didn't look away. But I'm not backing down. She nodded, her hand still on his chest, and the air between them felt electric, charged with something neither could name. Then let's do it, she said, guiding his hand to the pulsing rune. Their fingers intertwined, and Ellie felt the matrix hum, a warm current flowing through him. He closed his eyes, and the world shifted. It was like diving into a sea of light. He saw Lyra, not just her face, but her essence. A warrior born under a burning sky, a daughter betrayed by her own blood, a woman who'd fled to save a galaxy from her clan's ambition. And he felt her feel him, his loneliness after Clara's betrayal, his stubborn hope, the way his heart raced when she stood too close. It was overwhelming, raw, like standing naked in a storm. He saw her memories of Zara, her sister's cold smile, a throne room lit by dying stars. And he felt her longing, a need that mirrored his own, pulling them closer until their breaths mingled. The Wisp vanished from the Dawnblade's sensors, its cloak wrapping them in a bubble of distorted reality. The warship's weapons powered down, its crew baffled, but Ellie barely noticed. He and Lyra were still touching, their hands locked on the rune, their faces inches apart. Her violet eyes were wide, her lips parted, and Ellie realized he could feel her heartbeat through the bond, fast and unsteady. Well, he said, his voice a rough whisper, that was something. He tried to laugh, but it came out as a nervous chuckle. Do all Nithurian cloaking devices come with a side of soul-bearing? Lyra's laugh was soft, but her cheeks were flushed, her breath uneven. Only the good ones. She didn't pull away, and the tension between them was a live wire, sparking with every glance. You're full of surprises, human. Yeah, well, you're not exactly predictable either, he said, his eyes dropping to her lips before he caught himself. He cleared his throat, stepping back. But the bond lingered, a warm hum in his mind. So, we're invisible, now what? Lyra's expression turned serious, but her hand lingered on his arm, a touch that felt like a promise. We head for the Veil Nebula. There's a sanctuary there, a place even Zara can't reach. But the journey's dangerous, and the Matrix, it's changing. Changing how? Ellie asked, his stomach twisting. She hesitated, then pointed to the rune, now glowing brighter. Its light pulsing in time with their heartbeats. It's adapting to us, to you. I've never seen it do this before. Her voice was soft, almost reverent, but there was a tremor in it. Illy, what we just did, it's not just a cloak. It's awakened something in the Wisp, something ancient. Before he could respond, the ship's voice spoke again, its tone laced with a new, almost human curiosity. Matrix alignment complete. New protocols detected. Starweave human hybrid command structure. Awaiting orders, bonded pair. Illy's eyes widened. Bonded pair? Okay, ship, you've got to stop throwing curveballs like this. He glanced at Lyra, expecting her to laugh, but her face was pale, her eyes fixed on the console. Illy, she said, her voice barely a whisper, this changes everything. He felt it too, the bond, deeper now, tying them not just to each other, but to the wisp in ways he couldn't comprehend. And as the ship drifted toward the Veil Nebula, with Zara's warship still out there, and the Matrix humming with unknown power, Illy knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, he and Lyra were in it together, whether they liked it or not. The stellar wisp glided through the Inkai blackness toward the Veil Nebula, its cloak of distorted reality holding steady, a shimmering veil that hid them from the Dawnblade's relentless sensors. In the cockpit, the air was heavy with the afterglow of the Matrix's bond, the pulsing rune on the console casting a soft, rhythmic light across Illy Voss's face. He sat in the pilot's chair, his hands still gripping the controls, though the ship was on autopilot now, its path set for the sanctuary Lyra had promised. Her words, bonded pair, echoed in his mind, stirring a warmth that was equal parts exhilarating and unnerving. Beside him, Lyra leaned against the console, her silver hair spilling over her shoulders, her violet eyes studying him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Bonded pair, Illy said, breaking the silence, his voice rough with a mix of exhaustion and something he wasn't ready to name. You want to explain what that means exactly, because I'm starting to think this ship's got ideas about us I wasn't consulted on. Lyra's lips curved into a smile, teasing but tinged with something deeper, something that made the cockpit feel too small. The wisp isn't wrong, she said, her voice low and melodic like a song meant only for him. The Matrix binds us mind, body, spirit. It's how Nethurians command their ships. But with you, a human, she trailed off, her eyes flicking to the rune, its glow syncing with their heartbeats. It's never happened before. Illy shifted in his chair, his pulse quickening. Never, so I'm what your cosmic guinea pig. He tried for a laugh, but it came out shaky, his eyes drawn to the way her fur-like outfit hugged her curves, the faint shimmer of her skin catching the light. The bond hummed in his chest, a warm thread tying him to her, and he couldn't shake the memory of their minds merging, her strength, her longing, her fire. She stepped closer, her movements fluid, deliberate, like a predator circling something she wasn't sure she wanted to catch. Not a guinea pig, she said, her voice soft but charged. A partner. Her hand brushed his arm, a fleeting touch that sent a spark through him, and she leaned in, her breath warm against his cheek. The Matrix chose you, Illy Voss, and so did I. His throat went dry, his heart hammering. Chose me? Lyra, I'm just a guy who fixes engines. You're a queen. A warrior, eh? He gestured vaguely at her, words failing him as her scent, ozone and meadow flowers, filled his senses. You're way out of my league. Her laugh was soft, like starlight on water, and she tilted her head, her silver hair brushing his shoulder. Leagues don't matter in the void, she said, her eyes locking onto his. The Matrix sees what we feel, and I feel you, Illy, more than I expected. Her fingers traced the edge of the console, inches from his hand, and the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Illy swallowed, his mind racing. The bond was more than tech, it was her presence in his head, her heartbeat echoing his, the way her gaze made him feel like he could conquer galaxies or crash into one. This bond, he said, his voice low, it's making it real hard to think straight. Then don't think, she whispered, her voice a velvet caress. She stepped closer, her body brushing against his, and the cockpit seemed to shrink, the world narrowing to the space between them. Her hand slid to his chest, resting over his heart, and he felt the bond flare, a rush of warmth that made his breath hitch. Feel it, feel us. He looked into her violet eyes, saw the storm of emotions there, desire, vulnerability, a need that mirrored his own. The Matrix hummed, amplifying every sensation, every glance. He reached up, his hand covering hers, his fingers rough against her smooth skin. Lyra, he said, his voice barely a whisper, this is crazy. We're running from pirates, your sister, and who knows what else, and all I can think about is... Her lips met his before he could finish, soft and fierce, a kiss that tasted like starlight and danger. It was like the bond itself had ignited, a fire that burned through his doubts, his fears. He kissed her back, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. Her fur-like outfit was soft under his fingers, her body warm and alive, and the Matrix pulsed in time with their racing hearts, weaving their emotions into something bigger, something unstoppable. The kiss deepened, a hungry edge to it, and Lee felt the bond open wider, her thoughts brushing his, flashes of her standing on a windswept cliff under a violet sky, her heart racing as she stole the wisp, her longing for freedom, for connection. He gave her his own memories, nights spent rebuilding engines under starlight, the sting of Clara's betrayal, the stubborn hope that kept him going. It was raw, overwhelming, like bearing his soul in a language he didn't know he spoke. Lyra pulled back, her breath uneven, her eyes wide and luminous. "Illy," she murmured, her voice trembling with something that wasn't just desire. "The Matrix, it's amplifying us, making us more." Her hand slid to his jaw, her thumb brushing his lips, and he shivered, caught in the pull of her gaze. "More what?" he asked, his voice rough, his hands still on her waist, reluctant to let go. "More us," she said, her smile soft but wicked. "Partners, pilots, maybe something else." She leaned in again, her lips grazing his ear, her whisper sending a thrill down his spine. "But we need to be careful. The Matrix can overwhelm, blur the lines between us." Illy laughed, a shaky sound. "Blur, lady, those lines are already a mess." He pulled back slightly, trying to clear his head, but her scent, her warmth, lingered like a drug. "Okay, time out. If we keep this up, we're gonna crash into a star or something." Her laugh was bright, a sound that made his chest ache. "You're learning, human." She stepped back, but her hand lingered on his arm, a promise of more to come. "The sanctuary's close. We need to focus." He nodded, forcing his attention to the console, though his heart was still racing. The holoscreen showed the Veil Nebula, a swirling mass of violet and gold, its beauty hiding dangers he could only guess at. The rune pulsed brighter, and the ship's voice spoke, its tone almost amused. "Matrix alignment stable. Bonded pair efficiency, 92%. Sanctuary coordinates locked." Illy raised an eyebrow. 92%? What's that about?" Lyra's cheeks flushed, a rare hint of embarrassment. "The Matrix measures our compatibility. It's high, higher than I've ever seen." She glanced away, her fingers brushing her hair, and Lee couldn't help but grin. "So what, we're getting an A+ in cosmic chemistry?" he teased, leaning back in his chair. "Gotta say, I didn't see that coming when I spent my last 600 credits. Her laugh was softer now, but her eyes held his, warm and unguarded. "You're impossible," she said, but there was no bite in it. She moved to the navigation panel, her movements graceful but deliberate, as if she too was fighting the pull of the bond. "The sanctuary's hidden in the nebula's core. It's a place of refuge for my clan, but it's not without risks." "Risks?" Illy asked, his tone light but his gut tightening. "Like more pirates, or your sister showing up with a bigger ship?" "Worse," Lyra said, her voice dropping. "The nebula's core is unstable, laced with quantum rifts. The Matrix can guide us through, but it'll demand more from us, more trust, more connection." Her eyes met his, and the weight of her words settled between them, heavy with promise and peril. Before he could respond, the ship lurched, a low groan echoing through the hull. The holoscreen flashed red. "Warning, quantum rift detected. Structural integrity at risk." The cockpit lights dimmed, and Lee felt the bond flare again, Lyra's presence in his mind sharpening like a blade. "Hold on," she said, her hand finding his, their fingers interlocking instinctively. "The Matrix will protect us, but we need to stay linked." Illy nodded, his heart pounding as the wisp plunged into the nebula, its violet clouds swirling around them like a dream turned nightmare. The bond hummed, their emotions tangling, her resolve, his defiance, their shared desire to survive. And as the ship shook, the rune pulsing wildly, Illy realized something that made his breath catch. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for her. The stellar wisp plunged deeper into the Veil Nebula, its hull trembling as it navigated the swirling violet clouds laced with quantum rifts. The cockpit was a cocoon of tension, the air thick with the hum of the Starweave Matrix and the electric pull of the bond between Illy Voss and Lyra. Their hands remained intertwined on the pulsing rune, their fingers locked as if letting go might unravel the fragile thread holding them together. Illy's heart pounded, not just from the nebula's dangers, but from the lingering heat of their kiss, the way Lyra's presence burned in his mind like a star he couldn't look away from. Her violet eyes flicked to the holoscreen, tracking the quantum rifts that twisted space around them, but he could feel her through the bond, her resolve, her fear, and something deeper, something that made his breath catch. "Keep us steady," Lyra said, her voice low but firm, though a faint tremor betrayed her calm. "The rifts are unpredictable. One wrong move and we're atoms." Illy nodded, his hands tight on the controls, coaxing the wisp through the nebula's chaotic currents. "Got it. No atomizing today." He tried for a grin, but the bond made it hard to hide his nerves. He could feel her heartbeat, fast and uneven, mirroring his own. "Sanctuary better be worth it, Lyra. I'm not a fan of flying through cosmic minefields for nothing." Her lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. "The sanctuary is our only chance. It's hidden, shielded from the Dominion. My clan used it to protect the Matrix during the Great Schism." She glanced at him, her silver hair catching the rune's glow. "But it's not just a place. It's alive in a way, like the wisp." "Alive?" Illy raised an eyebrow, his voice dry. Great, another thing with opinions about us. This ship's already playing matchmaker. The bond pulsed, and he felt a flicker of her amusement, warm and teasing like a brush of sunlight across his skin. Before she could respond, the ship lurched violently, the holoscreen flashing red as a rift tore open ahead, its edges shimmering with impossible colors. Illy yanked the controls, banking hard to avoid it, but the wisp groaned, its hull straining. Sparks flew from a panel, and the ship's voice cut through the chaos, its tone unnervingly calm. Warning, quantum rift destabilizing matrix alignment. Bonded pair synchronization dropping to 87%. 87? Illy muttered, his hands a blur on the controls. Come on, ship, we were at 92 a minute ago. Don't start grading us now. Lyra's hand tightened on his, her touch grounding him even as the ship shook. Focus, Illy. The matrix needs us aligned. Close your eyes. Feel it? Her voice was urgent, her breath warm against his cheek, and the bond flared, pulling him into her orbit. He did as she asked, closing his eyes and letting the matrix's warmth flow through him. Her presence flooded his mind, fierce, radiant, a storm of violet and silver. He saw flashes of her memories, a golden city under a dying star, her sister Zara's cold betrayal, the weight of a crown she'd never wanted. And he felt her need, a longing that tangled with his own, making his heart race. The wisp stabilized, its path smoothing as the rift faded behind them. Illy opened his eyes, his breath ragged. Lyra was closer now, her face inches from his, her violet eyes wide and searching. "You're getting good at this," she said, her voice soft but heavy with something unspoken. Her hand lingered on his, her thumb brushing his knuckles, and the bond hummed, amplifying the heat between them. "Yeah, well, I've got a good teacher," he said, his voice rough. He tried to focus on the holoscreen, but her scent, ozone and meadow flowers, was intoxicating, and the bond made it impossible to ignore the way her presence set his nerves alight. The ship's voice interrupted, its tone shifting to something almost reverent. Sanctuary coordinates reached. Matrix alignment complete. Activating docking protocols. The holoscreen cleared, revealing a massive structure floating in the nebula's core, a lattice of crystal and metal, glowing with the same runes as the wisp. It was beautiful, ancient, like a cathedral carved from starlight, but its size and silence sent a chill down Elly's spine. Lyra's face lit up, a mix of relief and awe. "The Sanctuary of Orales," she whispered. "We made it." She turned to him, her smile radiant, and for a moment, Elly forgot the danger, the rifts, everything but her. The wisp docked with a gentle thud, and the cockpit lights dimmed as the ship powered down. Lyra released his hand, but the bond lingered, a warm thread tying them together. "Come," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "The sanctuary will protect us, but we need to activate its defenses." Illy followed her through the wisp's corridors, his boots echoing on the smooth, alien metal. The air grew cooler as they approached the airlock, and Lyra's fur-like outfit shimmered in the low light, her movements graceful but tense. The bond let him feel her unease, a shadow of doubt that mirrored his own. "You sure this place is safe?" he asked, his hand brushing the toolkit at his hip, a habit from years of fixing things that wanted to stay broken. "As safe as anywhere in the galaxy can be," she said, her voice dry. "But the sanctuary has its own quirks. Stay close." The airlock hissed open, revealing a vast chamber lined with glowing runes, their light pulsing in time with the wisps. The air was thick with energy, like standing in the heart of a storm. Lyra stepped forward, her blade drawn, its edge humming softly. Illy stayed at her side, his eyes scanning the shadows. The sanctuary felt alive, its walls whispering with a language he couldn't understand but could feel through the bond. Lyra approached a central pedestal, its surface covered in runes that flared at her touch. "This controls the sanctuary's defenses," she said, her fingers moving with practiced ease. "If we activate it, Zara's Dawnblade won't find us, but the Matrix will demand a price." "A price?" Illy asked, his gut twisting. "What kind of price?" Her eyes met his, and the bond carried a wave of her emotions, resolve, fear, and something achingly vulnerable. "The Matrix binds us to the sanctuary just as it binds us to the wisp. It will test us, our trust, our connection." Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. "Our hearts." Illy's throat tightened. "Test us how? More mind-melding? Because I'm still recovering from the last one." Her laugh was soft, but her eyes were serious. "Something deeper. The sanctuary will see us, truly see us. No secrets, no lies." She stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm, and the bond flared, warm and electric. "Are you ready, Illy Voss?" He nodded, his heart pounding. "Ready as I'll ever be." He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining, and the pedestal's runes glowed brighter, the air humming with power. The bond opened wide, their emotions tangling, his defiance, her strength, their shared longing. The sanctuary responded, its walls shimmering as a low voice echoed, not the wisps but something older, deeper. Starweave heir, human bondmate, present yourselves. Illy froze, his eyes widening. Did that thing just call me bondmate? He glanced at Lyra, expecting her to correct it, but her face was pale, her eyes fixed on the pedestal. And then the twist came. The pedestal flared, projecting a hologram that filled the chamber, a towering figure in robes of liquid starlight, her features sharp and regal, like Lyra's but colder, harder. It was Zara, her sister, but not as a transmission. This was a memory, a fragment encoded in the sanctuary's matrix. Lyra, the hologram said, its voice like ice. You thought you could run? The matrix is not yours to wield. It belongs to the Dominion and to me. Illy's heart stopped. Wait, what? He turned to Lyra, the bond flooding with her shock, her guilt. She's after the matrix, I thought you said. I didn't know, Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. Zara, she was exiled, I thought she was dead. Her hand tightened on his, her eyes wide with fear. The sanctuary's matrix, it's linked to hers. She's not just tracking us, she's inside the wisp. The chamber shook, runes flaring red as the sanctuary's voice spoke again. Intrusion detected. Matrix override initiated. Defensive protocols compromised. The holoscreen flickered, showing the Dawnblade emerging from the nebula, its weapons powering up. But worse was the realization hitting Illy like a plasma bolt. The Wisp's matrix wasn't just bonded to them. It was bonded to Zara, too. Lyra's face crumpled, her voice barely a whisper. She's my sister, Illy, and she's the one who betrayed me, the one who started the war I ran from. Her eyes met his, raw and vulnerable. The matrix chose you and me, but it's still tied to her. If she takes it, she'll destroy everything I fought to protect. Illy's mind reeled, the bond flooding with her pain, her fear. He pulled her closer, his hands on her shoulders, his voice steady despite the chaos. Then we stop her. Together. He glanced at the pedestal, its runes pulsing wildly. This sanctuary's alive, right? Can we use it to fight back? Lyra nodded, her eyes hardening with resolve. Yes, but it means facing her, facing us. The matrix will show us everything. Her betrayal, my mistakes. She stepped closer, her hand on his chest, her voice soft but fierce. And it will show you who I really am. Illy's heart pounded, but he didn't look away. I already know who you are, Lyra, and I'm not going anywhere. The bond flared, their emotions intertwining, and as the sanctuary shook, the Dawnblade closing in, Illy knew the real fight was just beginning, not just for their lives, but for the truth that could tear them apart or bind them forever. The sanctuary of Orales trembled around Illy Voss and Lyra, its crystalline walls pulsing erratically as the Starweave matrix struggled against Zara's intrusion. The hologram of Lyra's sister loomed over the chamber, its icy voice echoing in Illy's mind like a blade scraping bone. The Dawnblade was closing in, its silhouette a menacing shadow on the holo screen, its weapons glowing with the promise of destruction. Illy's hand tightened on Lyra's, their bond a lifeline in the chaos, her warmth anchoring him even as her pain flooded his senses. Her violet eyes were wide, shimmering with unshed tears, but her jaw was set, a warrior facing a storm she'd thought long buried. Zara, Lyra whispered, her voice raw as if saying the name tore something open inside her. She was supposed to be gone, exiled, dead. Her fingers trembled in Illy's grasp, and the bond carried a wave of her guilt, her fear, and a betrayal so deep it made his chest ache. I trusted her once, Illy, and she burned everything I loved. Illy's heart pounded, his mind racing to keep up. The Wisp, the Matrix, Zara, it was all spiraling out of control, and yet here he was, a mechanic from a backwater repair shop, caught in a galactic family feud. Okay, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Your sister's a problem, but we've faced worse today. Pirates, rifts, mind-melding tech, piece of cake, right? He flashed a grin, hoping to lighten the mood, but it felt like tossing a pebble into a hurricane. Lyra's lips twitched, a flicker of amusement breaking through her anguish. You're impossible, Illy Voss. She stepped closer, her fur-clad shoulder brushing his, her scent, ozone and meadow flowers filling the air. But you're right, we face this together. Her hand slid to his chest, her touch igniting a spark through the bond, and for a moment the looming threat of Zara faded, replaced by the heat of her nearness. Before he could respond, the sanctuary's voice boomed, its tone laced with urgency. Matrix override escalating, defensive protocols failing. Intruder access at 60%. The walls pulsed red, and the holo screen showed the Dawnblade firing a salvo of energy pulses, each one rocking the sanctuary's shields. Illy felt the impact through the bond, a jolt that mirrored Lyra's flinch. We need to sever Zara's link to the Matrix, Lyra said, her voice sharp as she moved to the central pedestal. Her fingers danced over the runes, but they flickered erratically, resisting her commands. She's using her own bond to the Matrix. From when we were, she trailed off, her face crumpling. From when we were sisters. Ellie's stomach twisted. You're saying she's got the same cosmic Wi-Fi we do? He stepped beside her, his hand brushing hers as he studied the runes. Can we, I don't know, change the password, lock her out? Lyra's laugh was half a sob, and she leaned into him, her shoulder pressing against his. It's not that simple. The Matrix is tied to our bloodline. To sever her link, we'd need to override it with ours. Her eyes met his, and the bond flared, her emotions a tangled storm of resolve and vulnerability. It means giving ourselves to the Matrix completely, no holding back, everything we are. Ellie swallowed, his throat dry. Everything, like more than the soul-bearing we've already done? He tried for humor, but his voice was rough, and the way her gaze held his, raw, open, almost pleading, made his heart skip. Lyra, I'm just a guy with a wrench. You sure you want to bet the galaxy on me? Her hand cupped his jaw, her touch soft but electric, and the bond hummed, amplifying every sensation. I'm not betting the galaxy, she said, her voice low and fierce. I'm betting on us. Her thumb brushed his cheek, and for a moment the sanctuary's alarms faded, the world narrowing to the space between them. You've already given me more than I thought possible, Illy Voss. His breath hitched, and he leaned into her touch, the bond flooding with their shared emotions, his defiance, her strength, a longing that burned brighter than the nebula outside. All right, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Let's do this. But if we end up married to this sanctuary, I'm drawing the line at cosmic in-laws. Her laugh was bright, a burst of silver in the chaos, and she pulled him toward the pedestal, their hands intertwining over the runes. The Matrix responded, its glow intensifying, and Ellie felt the bond open wide, a rush of energy that made his skin tingle. Lyra's presence filled his mind, her memories of a golden city, her sister's betrayal, the weight of a crown she'd fled. And he gave her his own, nights under starlight, the sting of Clara's lies, the stubborn hope that had led him to this moment. It was intimate, overwhelming, like standing in the heart of a star. The sanctuary's voice spoke, its tone almost reverent. Bonded pair override initiated. Matrix alignment at 95%. Prepare for synchronization. The runes flared and the chamber shook, the Dawmblade's pulses hammering the shields. Ellie felt Zara's presence through the bond, a cold, sharp intrusion like a blade in his mind. Her voice echoed, not from the hologram but from the Matrix itself. Lyra, you cannot hide. The Matrix is mine. You'll never be free. Lyra's hand tightened on his, her eyes blazing with defiance. She's wrong, she whispered, her voice fierce. This is our fight. She pressed closer, her body warm against his, and the bond surged, their emotions weaving into a single force. Ellie's mind raced, but he focused on her, on the fire in her eyes, the strength that made him want to be more than he'd ever been. The pedestal flared, and a new hologram appeared, not Zara, but a map of the sanctuary, its defenses glowing with untapped power. We can redirect the Matrix's energy, Lyra said, her fingers flying over the runes. Turn the sanctuary into a weapon, but it'll take everything we've got. Illy nodded, his hands joining hers on the pedestal. Then let's give it everything. The bond pulsed, and he felt her resolve bolster his own, their thoughts aligning like stars in a constellation. The sanctuary hummed, its walls shifting, revealing hidden turrets and energy conduits. The Dawnblade fired again, but the sanctuary's shields held, bolstered by the Matrix's power. Then came the awkward moment. The Matrix's voice spoke, its tone almost amused. Synchronization requires full emotional alignment. State your intent, bonded pair. A new rune glowed, its shape unmistakably heart-like, and Ellie's face burned as he realized what it meant. State our intent? He said, his voice cracking. What like confess our feelings in front of the galaxy's creepiest lie detector? He glanced at Lyra, expecting her to roll her eyes, but she was blushing, her silver hair falling over her face as she avoided his gaze. It's tradition, she muttered, her voice uncharacteristically shy. The Matrix demands truth. To overwrite Zara's link, we must declare what binds us. Her eyes flicked to his, and the bond carried a wave of her embarrassment, her hope, her desire. You first. Illy's mouth went dry. Me? Oh, come on, you're the queen here. He laughed, nervous and loud, but the sanctuary's hum grew insistent, and the Dawmblade's attacks intensified, shaking the chamber. Fine, he said, taking a deep breath. Lyra, I didn't expect this, any of this. I bought a ship to start over, not to end up fighting space wars with a woman who makes me feel like I could take on the universe. You're fierce, you're brilliant, and yeah, I'm falling for you, hard. His face was on fire, but the bond hummed with approval, her emotions flooding him with warmth. Lyra's eyes widened, her blush deepening, and she stepped closer, her hand on his chest. Illy Voss, she said, her voice trembling but clear, you're reckless, stubborn, and impossibly brave. I fled my world to protect the Matrix, but you make me want to fight for something more, for us. Her lips brushed his, a fleeting, electric touch, and the Matrix flared, its light enveloping them. The sanctuary's defenses roared to life, turrets firing precise pulses that forced the Dawnblade to retreat, its shields flickering. Zara's voice screamed through the Matrix, a mix of rage and desperation. You'll regret this, Lyra. But the bond held strong, Illy and Lyra's emotions a fortress against her intrusion. As the Dawnblade pulled back, the sanctuary stabilized, its runes glowing steadily. Lee and Lyra stood panting, their hands still on the pedestal, their faces inches apart. Well, Illy said, his voice hoarse, that was the most awkward love confession I've ever made, and I've made some bad ones. Lyra laughed, her eyes sparkling. It worked, didn't it? She leaned in, her forehead resting against his, and the bond hummed, warm and alive. But Zara's not done. She'll come for us again. Illy grinned, his hand brushing her silver hair. Let her. We've got a sanctuary, a reality-bending ship, and a pretty solid team. He paused, his grin turning sheepish. Also, I'm gonna need a minute to process that falling for you part. My heart's still doing backflips. Her laugh was a melody, and she squeezed his hand, her touch a promise. Take your time, human. We've got a war to win first. But as the sanctuary's lights dimmed, the wisp humming softly in the background, Illy knew one thing for sure, whatever Zara threw at them next. He and Lyra were ready, awkward confessions and all. The sanctuary of Orales glowed softly, its crystalline walls humming with the steady pulse of the Starweave Matrix, a quiet victory after the storm of Zara's assault. The Dawnblade had retreated, its silhouette fading into the violet swirls of the Veil Nebula, but the tension in the air lingered like a held breath. Illy Voss stood beside Lyra at the central pedestal, their hands still touching, the bond between them a warm current that thrummed with their shared triumph and the raw, honest words they'd spoken. Her violet eyes met his, sparkling with a mix of relief and something deeper, something that made his heart race. The stellar wisp rested safely in the sanctuary's dock, its runes glowing in harmony with the chamber, but Illy knew this wasn't the end, not of the danger, and certainly not of whatever was growing between them. Lyra's fingers brushed his, a gentle, grounding touch, and she smiled, her silver hair catching the light like a halo. You did it, Illy Voss, she said, her voice soft but rich with pride. You faced a galactic warlord, a reality-bending matrix, and my sister's wrath. Not bad for a human who spent his last credits on a fixer-upper. Illy grinned, his cheeks warming at her teasing tone. Yeah, well, I had a pretty good partner. He squeezed her hand, the bond flaring with a warmth that felt like home. But don't think I'm letting you off the hook. Zara's still out there, and I'm guessing she's not the send-a-nice apology note type. Lyra's laugh was a melody, bright and free, but her eyes held a shadow of worry. Zara doesn't forgive, she said, her voice quieter now. But the sanctuary's defenses are active, and the Matrix is ours for now. She stepped closer, her fur-like outfit brushing his arm, her scent of ozone and meadow flowers wrapping around him like a promise. We have time to plan, to prepare, and to figure out what this is. Her hand gestured between them, and the bond hummed, carrying a flicker of her hope, her vulnerability. Illy's throat tightened, his pulse quickening. This, he echoed, his voice rough. You mean the part where we're cosmically bonded, saving the galaxy, and maybe, just maybe, falling for each other? He tried for a smirk, but his eyes betrayed him, soft and searching as they met hers. Her smile was radiant, her violet eyes gleaming. Maybe, she said, her voice teasing but warm. She leaned in, her lips brushing his cheek, a fleeting touch that sent a shiver through him. But first we need to secure the sanctuary. Zara's link to the Matrix is weakened, but she'll try again. We need to be ready. Illy nodded, his hand still in hers, reluctant to let go. Right. Save the galaxy. Then figure out the romance part. Got it. He turned to the pedestal, its runes glowing steadily now, and felt the wisp's presence through the bond, a quiet reassurance that they weren't alone. So what's the plan? Fortify this place? Build a giant laser, or do we just keep running? Lyra's eyes sparkled with mischief. No more running. She moved to the holoscreen, her fingers dancing over the runes, pulling up a map of the sanctuary systems. Matrix can amplify the sanctuary's defenses, create a shield even Zara can't breach, but it needs us, our bond, to stabilize it. Her gaze flicked to him, a challenge in her eyes. Ready to be my cosmic battery again? Illy laughed, the sound easing the tension in his chest. Battery, huh? You're gonna owe me a better nickname after this. He joined her at the console, their shoulders brushing, and the bond flared, their emotions weaving together, his defiance, her resolve, their shared spark of something more. The Matrix responded, its light enveloping them, and the sanctuary's walls shimmered, new conduits glowing as power surged through the structure. The holo screen showed the nebula outside, calm now, its violet clouds swirling like a dream. But the sanctuary's voice broke the moment, its tone steady but urgent. Matrix shield activation in progress. Bonded pair synchronization required for final calibration. A new rune appeared, shape intricate, almost intimate, and Lee felt his face heat up as he realized what it meant. "Another sync?" he said, his voice cracking. "What do we have to confess our feelings again? Because I'm running out of poetic ways to say I'm into you." Lyra's laugh was bright, her cheeks flushing as she stepped closer, her hand on his arm. "No confessions this time," she said, her voice soft but playful. "Just trust. The Matrix needs to know we're in this together, for good." Her eyes held his, and the bond carried a wave of her emotions, hope, strength, and a love that was as fierce as it was fragile. Ellie's heart skipped, and he took a deep breath, his hand covering hers on the rune. "Together," he said, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. "For good." The Matrix hummed, its light wrapping around them, and the sanctuary's shields flared to life, a dome of energy that shimmered across the nebula, a fortress against the stars. The Dawnblade was gone, its sensors baffled by the sanctuary's new defenses, but Ellie knew Zara would return. The bond let him feel Lyra's certainty, her determination to face her sister and end the war she'd fled. But for now, they had won. The sanctuary was theirs, the wisp was theirs, and maybe, just maybe, they were each other's. As the shield stabilized, Lyra turned to him, her smile soft but radiant. "You've changed everything, Ellie Voss," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I stole the ship to save the Matrix, to save my people, but you've given me something to fight for." Ellie's throat tightened and he pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. The bond hummed, their heartbeats syncing, and he felt her warmth, her strength, her fire. "You're not so bad yourself, Your Highness," he said, his voice rough but warm. "I came to Asterion 7 looking for new start. Guess I found more than I bargained for." Her laugh was a melody, and she tilted her head, her lips brushing his in a kiss that was soft, slow, and full of promise. The Matrix glowed, its light bathing them in a warmth that felt like destiny. "We're not done yet," she whispered, her forehead resting against his. "Zara will come, the Dominion will come, but we'll face them together." Illy grinned, his hand brushing her silver hair. "Together, huh? Does that mean I get to keep the ship?" Her eyes sparkled, and she swatted his arm. "Laugh bright and free. The wisp is ours, human, but you're still on probation as a pilot." She leaned in, her lips grazing his ear, her voice a playful whisper. "Keep impressing me, and I might let you stay." He laughed, the sound echoing in the chamber, and for the first time in months he felt whole. The sanctuary hummed around them, a testament to their bond, their fight, their love. The stars outside wheeled in their ancient dance, and Ellie knew that whatever came next, Zara, the Dominion, or the unknown dangers of the galaxy, he and Lyra would face it as one. Months later, whispers spread across the galaxy of a human and an Etherian queen, piloting a ship that could bend reality itself. They were spotted at diplomatic summits, pirate ambushes, and one particularly chaotic trade negotiation where Ellie's terrible jokes nearly started a riot. But through it all, the stellar wisp soared, its runes glowing with the light of their bond. And in the quiet moments when the stars were still and the galaxy held its breath, Ellie and Lyra stood together, their hands intertwined, their hearts aligned, ready for whatever adventures awaited in the vast, uncharted void. And so, Ellie and Lyra soar into the stars, their bond unbreakable, their love a beacon in the void. I loved crafting this tale of courage, romance, and cosmic adventure. It's a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, human spirit shines. What do you think? Could you face a warlord for love? Drop your thoughts below. Thank you for joining us on X-Aurel. Your likes, subs, comments, and shares fuel our stories. Hit that button and let's keep exploring the universe together.